A couple of days ago, I brought my car in for servicing, and as a loaner vehicle, the dealership gave me a brand new 2025 Subaru Outback. And immediately when I found out that this was going to be my vehicle for the day, I knew I was going to have to talk about it because I cannot express enough just how bad modern Subarus are. Now, when I say that they're bad, I don't mean that they're bad in driving. I just mean that they are bad with all the tech on board. They have way too much tech. I've talked about this a few videos back when I mentioned that I test drove a brand new WRX. It just has way too much on board, way too much tech. It has a giant iPad screen, and it has, like, you know, the stupid electronic e-brake thing that you have to pull to set, and you push it to release. And then, you know, all the driving assist. It's insane. The same thing can be said for the brand new Outback. But I knew just by driving this thing throughout the day that it would eventually get under my skin. And to a certain extent, it did. Because the car itself was fine, but when I was trying to figure out how to fiddle with the settings and actually, you know, get the creature comfort settings to work for me, it just was about impossible to do. When I got in the car, I spent maybe about 10-15 minutes just trying to figure out how to turn on the AC and how to redirect the air. I mean, it's ridiculous. Everything, all the controls are on the screen. There's hardly any buttons at all. And the buttons that are in the car, they are on the steering wheel, which are just about impossible to press because there are so many of them. The buttons are so small. And I'm a big guy. I'm not fat or anything, but I got chunky hands. I got big, meaty hands. And it was really just about impossible for me to select just one button. I always ended up pressing two. So, like, I'll say again, the car itself was fine, but everything that makes it a car was not fine at all. All the creature comforts, all the, you know, infotainment stuff, it was just too much. So, oddly enough, I started taking notes about this car. That's how pissed off I am with this vehicle. I actually started taking notes on this Outback. Alright, so to start it off, I'm just going to start talking about the car's good points. It was actually really comfortable. It was actually a lot more comfortable than my Crosstrek. It was actually easier to drive, too. And this is sort of a small thing, but I just wanted to mention it anyway. It had a sunroof, which I've never driven a car with one before. Well, that's not entirely true. My mom and dad has one. Now I'm going to start talking about the car's bad points, which there are many of them. This isn't so much a bad thing, it's a strange thing to mention. It was confusing to see out of. Because the Outback basically sits on the same platform as every other Subaru, I thought it would be really similar to my Crosstrek because it has a sloped windscreen, and this one does too. And that was fine, but because it's basically a longer, it's more stretched out than the Crosstrek, it was weird because, for whatever reason, and I don't know why, they decided to raise the hood slightly on this Outback. This Outback is the largest one they've ever made. It's bigger than the last generation. And it was just really confusing to see out of. I don't know why, but it was just worth mentioning that, for whatever reason, this thing felt really weird to, like, drive. It was comfortable and easy, but weird at the same time. Moving on to what I think are probably some of the biggest problems with this car are the driving assists. I hate them. The driving assists that this thing has are pretty much the steering assists and the cruise control assist, and as well as that weird monitor thing that it has, like the range assist, where if a car in front of you is moving ahead, it speeds up, or if it's slowing down, the car slows down. That is sort of a cool thing, but that didn't really work most of the time. And one of the biggest issues I had with this feature was that anytime I would accidentally hover over the center line, the car would go crazy and you would just go beep, 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 you're over the line, so then I had to move back in. And I know that not everyone's the most perfect driver, not everyone drives in, like, the center of the lane. I do, typically, but I experimented to see just how sensitive this feature really is, and it didn't work most of the time. When I was basically, like, testing it on, like, a straight road, I would veer off to the left just ever so slightly to see if the car would register that I'm hovering over the double yellow line, and it wouldn't do that. It would only do it whenever I was going through a corner, so that was really annoying. But then I think the biggest complaint, and this is really a nitpick, it's not so much like a bad thing, it's just super annoying, is that basically anytime I pulled up to a stoplight and there was a car in front of me and then the light turned green, the car would drive ahead and then a little stupid message would pop up on the screen saying, you know, oh, the car has moved ahead, you may proceed. Dumbass, I know how to drive. I can see with my ears and hear through my eyes. It is so easy to do that. I literally do not need that message popping up every single time I pull ahead. Like, there's no point to it. But yeah, so that was like super annoying, and I'm sure that there's a setting to turn it off, but I'm gonna be honest, it was so hard to find even the settings for the air conditioning system. I'm not even sure there is one in there to begin with for the driving assist. I'm sure there is, but I couldn't be bothered to check for it. So yeah, that was super annoying, but yeah, anyway. Moving on, I also want to talk about the steering wheel, which the steering wheel's fine, just like the car, but everything that goes along with the steering wheel was not fine. As I mentioned earlier, there are a lot of buttons on the steering wheel, and as such, they're small too. I got big hands, and when I was trying to basically call someone, this actually happened. I tried to call my mom, and I tried to cancel it, but for some reason, I ended up calling my cousin while she was working. I couldn't cancel it because I kept on pressing what I thought was the end call button, but it was just another voice command button. I don't understand why they had to do that. It was weird. And what I thought was the volume button was actually the infotainment selector on the digital cluster. It's a weird design, and I don't understand it, because not everyone's a midget. Not everyone has tiny fingers. There are some people, like me, who have big chunky hands. Like, I'm sure that if they were to, like, you know, keep the same buttons there, but just move them around, I'm sure it would have been great, because that would mean that the buttons would be, you know, scaled up a little bit bigger, and that way it would be easier to press them. But talking of moving things around, I want to talk about the horrible placement of the air vents, which I absolutely hate on not just the Outback, but also on my Crosstrek. Because I don't know how Subarus managed to do this. They make, I think, probably the worst designed air vents of any car brand. I don't know how they've managed to do it again, but they have done it with not only the Outback, but also the WRX, as well as all modern Subarus. The biggest issue I have is the placement of the driver's side, right side air vent. And it's completely useless. Most car brands, when they put air systems in, they typically design them so that they aim directly right at the driver and the passenger, right? The passenger is irrelevant, but the driver, they typically aim the air vents so that all the air can be blown onto the driver. That's not the case with Subaru. What they've done, and I had to do this with my car as well, on the driver's side left air vent, that one's fine, but on the right air vent, it's not fine at all, because it's completely blocked off by the steering wheel. So the left one, you get maybe about 75% of the air blowing to you, and maybe about 25% of the other air vent blowing to you. And it's completely useless, because if you try and angle the vent at you, it's not going to go because it's blocked by the steering wheel. Another thing too, your hand will freeze. Not literally, but your hand will become really freaking cold. And this is another thing too. Up here in Washington, it gets insanely hot. I don't know about anywhere else in the country, but I'm sure everyone complains about that. But up here in Washington, it gets really hot. Over on the east side, it gets hotter because it's drier over there. But over here on the western side, where I live, there's a layer of humidity which just adds maybe 20 degrees more. So if it's 80 degrees over here, it feels like it's 100 degrees because of just how damp and sticky, and it's disgusting. So you would think that the air vents should be doing their job, but they're not. Only the left side air vent is doing most of it, and the right air vent isn't. It's a terrible design, and I really want them to stop doing it. But for whatever reason, and I can't explain why, the older air vents, and this is why I think older Subarus are better, because I saw this on the 2017 WRX, the air vents are fine. Whereas on the Crosstrek, and I'm assuming most modern Subarus, they're basically mounted in a column on the center of the screen. The old WRX's vents, they're mounted on top of the screen on the dashboard, which means that you are able to move them so that way you can get air blown to you, which is a good design, and I wish they would bring that back on the newer models, but you know, I don't know everything. Now, talking of the giant screen, I wanted to talk about, well, the giant screen. The entire front of the inside of the car is disgustingly distracting. I don't know what the deal is with Subaru and giant screens, because it's not even just with Subaru, it's just about with every single car manufacturer today, but I don't understand what the fixation is on having a giant iPad-sized screen, sometimes even bigger, on the center of the dashboard. And sometimes there's a second one that's on the passenger side. I don't understand it. On a conventional car, you have buttons that, you're able to select and, configure things around. But with Subaru, I don't understand why they decided to go this way, because about 75% of the buttons you use to control, like, the climate change and, all the creature comforts in the car, they're on the screen. They're not an actual button that you can press. Like, I'm sure that the tech inside will make perfect sense to the fetus that designed it, but it's not going to make sense to a 70-year-old with cataracts. They probably turn up the volume button thinking that that's what's going to turn on the AC, but it won't. I talked about this in a recent video about this electric truck or whatever, and some dude mentioned in the comments section that I don't know what the comment said, I forgot, but here it is. And he was basically saying that, having a screen is better than, being safe, basically. I'm not reading the comment right now. I'm not exactly sure what he said, but that's what it is. And it was hilariously stupid what this guy said. The reason why, and I think a lot of people would agree, the reason why Subaru has gone this route of putting giant screens in is because they're trying too hard to become a luxury brand, which is just, that is just not okay. Subaru has never been a luxury brand. It's always been basically what I would call the adventurer's brand. It's always been about vehicles that, are rugged, go anywhere machines with minor luxurious features to them. But they're overdoing it. I don't understand what the fixation is with having so much tech, and most of it is centralized in this giant screen, which is not only distracting, but also dangerous. I was driving to work that day. I was basically driving in the direction of the sun, and the way how the sun was facing, it was beaming down at the screen. And what's even stupider is that directly under the screen, there's like this stupid plastic trim thing. I don't know what it was. I'll show a picture of it here. This was more blinding than the screen itself. But I basically took a picture of it in two different phases. One was basically focusing on the plastic bit itself, which in that picture you can see it's so bright that it makes the entire screen just black. You can't even see it. Whereas I focused on the screen itself and this plastic silver bit, it just popped. It just exploded with brightness. And I was blind. I literally had to cover that as I was driving along. I don't understand what the purpose was with that. I understand that silver can sometimes be like a luxurious thing to add into a car. I completely understand that. Just don't put it there. So yeah, that was basically me explaining the pros and cons of the brand new Outback that I drove the other day. Do I recommend getting one? No, not really. I'd still recommend going for an older one, because at least that one, it's similar to the new one and it has tech in it that I think everyone can use. But yeah, that's basically about it. Thank you guys for watching.